Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. This morning, let us explore the 9th of 28 passages of the meditation classic, Great Garuda in Flight, composed oh so many centuries ago by the great Buddhist reformer, Vajra. Let's see, so I wish to tap button 14. Pristine awareness cannot manifest as an object that can be conceived. By establishing a mind attached to ancient sages, one ends up utterly tormented by striving and struggles. Omniscience rises only when one enters the path of the natural reality. So the majority of this morning's lesson is going to be about attachment to ancient sages, but let's begin at the beginning. What is meant by pristine awareness? Pristine awareness is a fancy way of describing about meditation and mindfulness. So we'll get into the secret behind metaphors and similes in just a moment. But to understand the basic mechanics of pristine awareness, the basic mechanics that the author is assuming you're already grounded in, I'm going to take a few minutes to explore some visual aids. Now, both this text and the visual aids are available for free downloads as PDFs. Everything I do is free. So you don't have to worry about being suckered into some sort of a thing where you need a blessing or a secret handshake. That's malarkey. Everything's free, all the time. The Buddha taught not to force people to ransom the Dharma. Okay, here we go. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything is sex. As newborn infants, we are plugged into our survival circuitry. And so infants and toddlers are wired to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. As we evolve through early childhood, we have opportunities to activate other circuits that help us to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. If we are stuck in our survival mechanisms, it will drive us to be cowardly, cranky, and competitive. If we are defined by our cooperative circuitry, we will be content and compassionate as well as cooperative. Sadly, 90% of people are locked into their survival mechanism. Instead of thriving, they're surviving. And this includes meditation teachers. The majority, 90% of meditation teachers, are going to implore their students to actively focus and actively analyze. And then when their students begin presenting with symptoms of depression, or when those same students trigger their amygdalas and become increasingly more cowardly and cranky, no less competitive, they act surprised, but they shouldn't. Fortunately, neither the amygdala nor the prefrontal cortex constitute the entirety of our central nervous system. Consider, if you will, our spinal cord. Every time we inhale, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, described as the sympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. To notice mind's antics of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. Instead of picking and choosing as if we were controlling, we're laid back and vulnerable to all manner of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. Well, how do we cope with all that? Simple. Every time we exhale, we have evolved to automatically access the end bits of our spinal cord. Kind of like bookends on an empty shelf. Or bookends on a shelf not quite full. The fancy name for this is the parasympathetic nervous system, and it has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and less defining. Now, I mentioned figures of speech. All complex life forms on this planet, if you go back far enough, evolved to think symbolically. That's the basis of our big old brains. Are there metaphors specifically for meditation? Watch this. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, a simile is only as effective as it is relatable, so we have to ask the question. What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn? Which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, feel non-graspable to the hand. So emptiness is just a metaphor of the natural process of fleetingly letting go during our exhalation. Noticing is not an indictment. We are wired to do both, notice and relax. Just as a bird requires both its wings to take to the skies, we need both mindfulness and meditation to become more peaceful, but also to calm our amygdala and to gently stimulate the anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, that which drives not only our contentment, but our compassion, as well as our cooperation. Now that we've reviewed the basics, let's return to this morning's teaching text. Wrong button. So, pristine is a metaphor for meditation. Awareness is a synonym for mindfulness. Mindfulness and meditation cannot manifest as an object that can be conceived. We cannot concentrate our way to mindfulness. We cannot contemplate our way to meditation, for they use different parts of the brain. Now, an intelligent question is, hey, dude, are you telling me to never concentrate and to never contemplate? Au contraire. The more we absorb mindfulness and meditation into our lifestyle, practicing once every 12 hours or so, the more we will find that our choices and our utterances and our deeds flow not from calculated contrivance, not from absurd scatteredness, but from a centeredness that is, from a spontaneity that is deeply centered. Some would call this expedient means, some would call it going with the flow. But it is from this place of centered spontaneity that we can find ourselves spontaneously focusing or spontaneously contemplating, effortlessly, easily, sustainably. So it's not a question or not of whether you're going to drive a car. It's whether you're going to drive a car in a way that's going to keep you alive, keep other people alive, and ensure the longevity of the vehicle. Now, let's get to the really, what's it called, subversive stuff. By establishing a mind attached to ancient agents, so amongst approximately 90% of teachers and authors and organizations who tend to be really cranky and rigid and controlling and elitist, they have found an easy way to manipulate people is through guru devotion, attachment to agents, sages. Why is that? Well, consider, if you will, a baby cow or a calf. In the wild, before the advent of civilization 10 to 13 millennia ago, a calf would be highly vulnerable. Even though it could stand within its first hour, it's highly vulnerable to starvation, for it cannot digest grass, and predators, for it cannot defend itself. It's just a baby. Therefore, mammalian infants evolved the tendency to stick close to mama. Part of that was because mama evolved to have an opaque-like structure or substance added to her milk to really keep calf close to mama. Therefore, calf was close to mama's udders for nourishment and close to mom's horns for protection. Now, of course, that changed once calf became pubescent, and there was a radical change in the pubescence chemistry. No longer was it vertically devoted to its mother, it was now horizontally devoted to the remainder of the herd. That's what we consider moving from childhood to adulthood, is moving from vertical devotion to mama to horizontal devotion to, or I should say horizontal empathy for the entire community. However, humans as mammals, even though most of us are adults, most of us are grown up, most of us have gone on dates and kissed and all that kind of fun stuff, we still have that circuitry. And when we are stressed, it can come into the fore, and we can experience an urge to devote ourselves to a parental figure, corporeal or celestial, real or imagined, to protect us. And those who are manipulative, those who are controlling, those who are elitist, those who exploit others, prey on that tendency and will tell us things like, you're born a sinner, everything you do is bad karma, you're going to take an unfortunate rebirth, you cannot figure out meditation on your own, you must, pray to these dead meditators, real or imagined, and follow their instructions to the letter. And because we've been doing that longer than you have, by proxy, or the transitive property of equality, you should pray to your teacher and you should do whatever they say, like a little slave who pays for the opportunity to practice servitude. Yuck. And so we're warned here, this is nothing new. As long as there's been humans, there have been humans trying to take advantage of each other. Not all, but enough. And so we're warned that if we do this, if we fall for this trap of forgetting to be adult and trying to become a little child, looking for his mama, then we're going to be utterly tormented by striving and struggles. And you could say, dude, What's the difference between struggling and striving and struggles? And the answer is there is none. This is what I like to call poetic redundancy to make a point. Sometimes they'll use 2 synonyms, sometimes they'll use 3. It's just to make the point. The point is you cannot neurotic your way to peace. Trying to use neurosis as a path to peace is far too much like making love in the name of virginity. It's a fun way to spend an afternoon, but it's not going to get you anywhere closer to your stated goal. Now, I can't tell you that I received this information from on high because it never applied to me because I've never made a mistake. That would be what we know in Her Majesty's Navy as a lie. That was, of course, a reference to Yellowbeard. So, yeah, I made a shit ton of mistakes. I found myself in culty organizations. Some were Christian, some were Buddhist. I found myself being exploited and told to mindlessly propitiate a parental figure. And I did, and it made me cranky and anxious. And I looked around and it made my peers cranky and anxious. And I looked up at the teachers and it made them cranky and anxious. And it's like, I don't want to be like, I don't want to further indulge my cranky, anxious nature. And I don't want to be like them who are doing that as well. So one thing was, if it was just me, then it was cool. If it's just me, then there's something wrong with the way I'm applying the information, or the way I'm understanding the information, or there's something innately wrong with my central nervous system. That's cool. That can be addressed. But if it was everybody just presenting with the same set of symptoms, then it's most likely the system. I'm a big fan of the 14th Dalai Lama. Many years ago, his commentary to Essence of Refined Gold set me on the tantric path. I'm forever grateful to him. But in his own words, in his own writing, he said, fear's amazing. There's nothing wrong with fear. But that's only because he was raised to traverse the path of being anxious, aggressive, and rigid, and fearful, and controlling, and elitist. This is not the way to peace. Remember, we have evolved through a happy coincidence, to paraphrase Carl Sagan. We have evolved to have an autonomic nervous system. Not just you, not just me, but the vast majority of healthy mammals. I love kitty cats. I used to live with a crazy cat woman, and she had 12 cats, for God's sakes. Anyway, yes, cats can have zoomies, and cats can have fights, and cats can sleep. But sometimes cats will just sit in an impeccable posture and vibe. That's what meditation is. We're simply cooperating with our autonomic nervous system, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. That's it. Back in the 90s, our computers used to have a defragmentation feature in the utilities section. And it would kind of be like the simile was that in an office, if the files aren't put away, you have a great big mess and you can't find anything. Well, the defragmentation would sort everything back into nice, neat, symmetric piles, so your computer could run more efficiently. Well, arguably, when we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, our mind and our emotions are able to cope. We're able to be a happy, healthy, well-adjusted human. We're already wired to do this. Now, we've been conditioned to ignore our intuition and to fight against our body in a way that's unsustainable, in a way that doesn't work, in a way that makes us cranky, in a way that makes us cruel. Nobody wants that. So let's move forward in the text. Omniscience arises only when one enters the path of the natural reality. Omniscience is a delightful metaphor of enlightenment. Omniscience doesn't mean that we are Encyclopedia Brown and we know everything about everything. You and I will never be Google on 2 feet. Omniscience here refers to understanding the nature of all phenomena. What's that? Well, we mentioned that a few moments ago. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever thing, being, phenomena we notice during our inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, less graspable. That's it. It's not a question of belief. It's not a question of philosophizing. It's a visceral understanding that comes simply from cooperating with our autonomic nervous system. Now, those upon the path of being cowardly and cranky and competitive will say, oh, this is going to take you many, many lifetimes, many, many lifetimes. It'll take you a period of time 3 times larger than the lifespan of the universe. However, the Buddha didn't say that. He said, dude, you can master this in a week. He might not have said dude. You get the idea. So the natural reality is we notice things and we relax. We notice things and we relax. Just like the swinging pendulum of a grandfather clock. Just as every organism, every complex mammal must respirate, must inhale and must exhale. And by cooperating with it, we cannot help but notice and relax and quickly become the people that our dogs already think we are. Having completed this morning's opening lesson, we could now shift gears. It is Ahsoka Tano Thursday morning. Let us meditate like a Jedi. After approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping, this is the Dzogchen Sendi Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus so that about 8 hours a day, almost every day, I could study, practice, reverse engineer. Study, practice, master, and reverse engineer the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Us neurodivergent folk, we're a pain in the ass, but we have some good skills. This is mine. I can't tell you about trains, I can't tell you about dinosaurs, but I can tell you about meditation. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, what's what I'm looking for? Yes. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let's practice mindfulness and meditation together. Checking the time. If you, like me, are prone to arthritis, you may wish to gently adjust your legs once every 15 minutes or so. Oh, yes, it would be helpful if I gave you the trick. Here's the trick. The easiest way to practice mindfulness, which is simply noticing mind's antics, is to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb watch each time we feel our chest swell as we inhale. The most efficient way to practice meditation, which is simply relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature, is for us to silently and mentally recite the verb rest each time we feel our chest sink in exhalation. Moment you have a specific question about Buddhist mindfulness or meditation. Let's try this again. Or philosophy. Do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 15 minutes or so. So, quick reminder, don't wait to the end to ask me questions, because by the end, I'm out of gas. As soon as you have a question, type it down in the chat window. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.